remember the problems of democracy teacher. He came into the classroom and he was all upset that there was a coup in South Vietnam. And this gentleman was killed and there's a change in government. And we looked at each other and I said, where the hell's South Vietnam? You gotta be kidding me. A coup, who cares? Who would ever in our wildest dreams think that a few years later that I would be leading men into battle in South Vietnam, in Cambodia? I didn't even know where it was.
Then I'll take you out as soon as I get back.
Get back from where?
Well, I'm shipping out first thing tomorrow morning, going overseas.
Where are you going?
Okinawa. But I'm aiming for this other place. It's a little country near India called Vietnam.
Yeah, I think I read about it. Aren't they fighting there or something?
No, not really. We'll just be there as advisors to teach them how to take care of the commies.
That could be dangerous.
Nah, kick a little ass, take a few names, be back in a couple of months.
Kiss me goodbye and write me while I'm gone. Goodbye, my sweetheart, hello, Vietnam. America has heard the bugle call, and you know it involves us one and all. I don't suppose that war will ever end. There's fighting that will break us up again. Goodbye, my darling, hello, Vietnam. A hill to take, a battle to be won. Kiss me goodbye and write me while I'm gone. Goodbye, my sweetheart, hello, Vietnam. A ship is waiting for us at the dock. America has trouble to be stopped. We must stop communism in that land, our freedom will start slipping through our hands. I hope and pray someday the world will learn that fires we don't put out will bigger burn. We must save freedom now at any cost, or someday our own freedom will be lost. Kiss me goodbye and write me while I'm gone. Goodbye, my sweetheart, hello, Vietnam.
These people who say that we ought to withdraw from Vietnam are wholly wrong, because if we withdrew from Vietnam, the communists would control Vietnam. Pretty soon, Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, Malaya would go, and all of Southeast Asia would be under the control of the communists and under the domination of the Chinese.
I hear the sound of distant drums far away, far away. And if they call for me to come, then I must go, and you must stay. So marry, marry me, let's not wait. Let's share all the time we can before it's too late. Love me now, for now is all the time there may be. If you love me, marry, marry, marry me. I hear the sound of bugles blow, far away, far away. And if they call, then I must go across the sea, so wild and gray. So marry, marry me, let's not wait. For the distant drums might change our wedding day. Love me now, for now is all the time there may be. If you love me, marry, marry, marry me.
Vietnam began to come into currency. Didn't know what it was, and like most Americans probably didn't know where it was, what the significance of it was.
I was passing by a playground just the other day, and I spied a little boy sitting all alone while the other kids laughed and played. At once he drew my attention, and when I asked him what was wrong, and in a sad little boy's kind of way, he said, "My daddy is in Vietnam." You see, mister, he's been gone since Christmas. Do you think that he's been shot? And I know that mommy's awful worried because she sits and cries quite a lot. So if you'll take me to see him, mister, I will gladly pay. 'Cause you see, I have 3 pennies. Is it very far away?
Mister, where is Vietnam? Is it very far away? I want to see my daddy. Will you take me there today?
I didn't know what to say to him. His words had stopped me cold. And I knew that this world's troubles was on the shoulders of a little boy not yet 4 years old. So with head bowed down, I turned around and slowly walked away. What would you have done in my place if you had heard that little boy say,
we were in the Cold War, and this was a Cold War activity.
Sailing over to Vietnam, Southeast Asian Birmingham. Well, training is the word we use, nice word to have in case we lose. Training 1 million Vietnamese to fight for the wrong government and the American way. Well, they put me in a barracks house just across the way from Laos. They said you're pretty safe when the troops deploy, but don't turn your back in your house, boy. When they ring the gong, watch out for the Viet Cong. Well, the sergeant said it's time to train, so I climbed aboard my helicopter plane. We flew above the battleground. A sniper tried to shoot us down. He must have forgot we're only trainees. Them commies never fight fair. Friends, the very next day we trained some more. We burned some villages down to the floor. Yes, we burned out the jungles far and wide, made sure those red apes had no place left to hide. Threw all the people in relocation camps under lock and key, made damn sure they're free. Well, I walked through the jungle around the bend. Who should I meet but the ghost of President Diem? Said you're fighting to keep Vietnam free for good old Democracy. That means rule by one family and 15,000 American troops, give or take a few thousand American troops. He said I was a fine old Christian man ruling this backward Buddhist land. Well, it ain't much, but what the heck, it sure beats hell at a Chiang Kai-shek. I'm the power elite, me and the 7th Fleet. He said, meet my sister, Madame New, the sweetheart of Dien Bien Phu. He said, meet my brothers, meet my aunts, with a government that doesn't take a chance. Families that slay together, stay together. Said if you want to stay, well, you have to pay over $1 million a day. But it's worth it all, now don't you see? If you lose the country, you still have me. Me and Sigmund Rhee, Chiang Kai-shek, Madame New. Like I said on Meet the Press, I regret that I have but one country to give for my life. Well, now old DM is gone and dead. All the new leaders are anti-red. Yes, they're pro-American freedom sensations against Red China and the United Nations. Now all the news commentators and the CIA are saying, thank God for coincidence.
And that's why a country like Vietnam, that was of no strategic value to the United States, had no economic value to the United States, suddenly became important because it was a domino.
Well, over there in Vietnam, we've got another war. Well, I know and they know just what they're fighting for in that war, that crazy Vietnam War. Well, 1945, we helped them win their fight. But all that we got was a lesson in what everybody said was right in that war, that crazy war. Well, I was a country boy, I lived out on the farm. I hadn't even killed an gnat, done a body harm till that war, that crazy war. Well, the sheriff caught me one day, said, come along, me, my son. Your Uncle Sam is needing you to help him tote a gun in that war, that crazy war. They took me down to the Duxie station, my head was in a whirl. And when that doctor passed me, I wished that war, that crazy war. They marched me out to the rifle range to hear them bullets sing. I shot and shot that whole day long and never hit a thing in that war, that crazy war. Well, the captain said that Fort Will, and I said, who is he? That plain old captain got so mad he took a shot at me in that war, that crazy war. At first I got to Vietnam, I looked around with glee. But all out of saws and Viet Cons is coming after me in that war, that crazy Vietnam War. Them bullets went flying over my head, I headed home right then. Well, the corporal, he was after me, but the general beat us in that war, that crazy Vietnam War. I run all over Vietnam, we're trying to save my life. If there become another war, I'll send my darling wife to that war, that crazy Vietnam War. Well, hunting these guerrillas over here like hunting squirrels for fun. The only trouble is these guerrillas all got guns and know how to use them too. In this war, this crazy Vietnam War. Well, wars may come and wars may go, honey, get this on your mind. If there become another war, I'll be hard to find in this war, this crazy, crazy Vietnam War.
The American soldier, what makes him so great in combat is the mere fact that he uses his initiative. This is what makes the American soldier a greater fighting man than any foreign army that you can name. The American soldier will do anything, but the American soldier wants to know why.
Last night sent shivers down my spine. I dreamt about a jungle and rivers filled with slime. I heard jet planes a-screeching and cannons making noise, and lying in the swamplands were dead American boys. I was dreaming, I was only dreaming, glad that I was dreaming nothing more. Of course I was. We ain't at war, but I dreamt of Chinese instigators, USA administrators, North Vietnam agitators, South Vietnam demonstrators, Viet Cong red exterminators, all the Lincoln imitators claim they're true emancipators, while their bloody hands enslave us. I was only dreaming, glad that I was dreaming nothing more. Of course I was. We ain't at war. And in my dream last night, the nightmare that I had, I listened to the radio and all the news was bad. The Russians sent in missiles to fight our bombardiers, and all the non-combatants say they'll fight for 20 years. I was dreaming, I was only dreaming, glad that I was dreaming nothing more. Of course I was. We ain't at war, but I dreamt of World War drums a-beating, escalating, not receding. UN leaders scared of bleeding, bullet makers all stampeding, yellow, black, and white boys bleeding, only miss their death succeeding. Little people crying, pleading, politicians never heeding. Button pushing time is near and dreaming, dreaming. I was only dreaming, glad that I was dreaming, nothing more. Of course I was. Of course I was.
The aim of the communists is to establish control over all of Vietnam, and after that, over all of Southeast Asia.
People always ask, well, what's the trouble in Vietnam? This is in the very early days, when, of course, officially there was no trouble in Vietnam. Of course there was. The Viet Cong were out there organizing in the villages and in the rice paddies. The North was using 100,000 Southerners trained in the North, held there in that reservoir of potential terror. They brought them all down south in the next 7 years, 1956 through 1963. They were running out of them by 1964, but they sure had done the fishing job. Infiltration, that infiltration. You don't see nothing, you don't hear nothing, and they just keep creeping. It just keeps creeping along. Well, they come from the mountains, they come from the seashore, and all that you really know, they're more than you were before that infiltration. It just keeps creeping along. There's a long, long trail a-winding to bring the boys down from Hanoi, and they cross Laotian frontiers past those icy seeing boys. Now the Canadian says violation, and the Pole says I don't see, and the Indian says it's gripping, but let's have another cup of tea. So if you will control infiltration, take this advice from me. You can keep your control commission, but you gotta get rid of that tea. You just gotta kick that tea.
In 1964 and early 1965, the country was going along with the president. The arguments were being made increasingly to the country and through the media that Vietnam was important, that the United States had a commitment there, that something would have to be done.
It looks like we're going to fight again. War is something nobody wins. I got hay that should be mowed, I got taters to behold, and it looks like we're going to fight again. Way back in 1942, Uncle Sam says, I got a job for you. I'm gonna ship you overseas to whoop them monkeys in the trees. And it looks like we're gonna fight again. In Korea, we had the same darn thing. Lots of puppets and old Moscow pulled the string. A lot of good men there have died, but they're still not satisfied. So it looks like we're gonna fight again. Down in Cuba, there's a man who needs a shave, and it makes me mad to see him rant and rave. I'd like to take him to a barber shop and whip him with a razor stop. So it looks like we're
watching TV, Khrushchev waved the shoe at me. So it looks like we're gonna fight again. Oh, it looks like we're gonna fight again. War is something nobody wins. I got hay that should be mowed, I got haters to behold, and it looks like we're gonna fight again. You know, all of our enemies are not overseas. There's some here at home who still like to appease. And if you think those other countries are so cotton-picking swell, why don't you pack up your duds and go straight to, well, looks like we're gonna fight again. Well, looks like we're gonna fight again.
When Lyndon Johnson inherited the presidency, he inherited many things, but one of them was the legacy of the Vietnam War. And the Democratic presidents felt need not to lose 1 square foot of territory to communism, particularly in Asia, to draw the line, to hold the line, and to keep the presidency thereby. Because if you lose, the final domino in the domino sequence is not some Asian country, it's the presidency itself.
I'd like to tell a story you might have heard before. It's all about a country that had to go to war. About the boys from the USA who helps protect their land. Yes, I'm sure you've read about the trouble in North Vietnam. It started out like any war, someone was full of greed. They want to show their power, so they plant the evil seed. They lead the people to believe their way of life is best. Yes, the Viet Cong believed the word of the Chinese communist. But our president decided this country shall not fall. So he sent our leathernecks to help fight for the cause. And since our Marines have landed, many lives have been lost. And everyone keeps wondering, is it really worth the cost? But if you could see the damage that's caused by this war, you'd be thankful that the Red Chinese will never get this far. And our boys, they keep saying, we'll fight to the very last man. Yes, they'd give their lives to stop this war in North Vietnam. You know, a war doesn't affect just a soldier who fights. When the enemy attacks, many civilians lose their lives. But yet the people's faith remain high. They never lose hope. They say with the free world, against this war we will cope. Back home, the fathers and mothers pray the day never comes when they are told their son was wounded by the enemy's gun. It's an awful price we have to pay to protect our land. Yes, many hearts will be broken from the war in North Vietnam. So let's back our boys who give their lives so we might have peace. And let's pray to God that all this fighting soon will cease. And hope this shows the world that freedom shall always stand. Yes, we'll always help stop aggression like we are in North Vietnam.
Johnson and his advisors understood very little about Vietnam's history and its strong resistance to Chinese and French invasions over the centuries. They totally underestimated the nationalist aspect of Ho Chi Minh's movement and assumed if they wreaked enough havoc and killed enough people, the Vietnamese would submit.